Hello, everybody. Welcome to Maximum Libertarian. We're joined here today by Mitchell Suchner. He is the CEO of ArkPad. It is a innovative idea where you're building resorts and complexes out in the middle of the ocean, correct? And you're going to discuss that with us. So we're joined right now. Mitchell's getting set up. So. How are you doing today? You're over in the Philippines, correct?
Yeah, I'm in the Philippines right now. Yeah, it is about 11:30 p.m. over here, but I'm usually up pretty late.
All right. So can you tell us a bit about what your background and what inspired you to get involved with this floating structure, the technology with the floating structures?
I mean, I think that I've always been, so I'm just trying to reposition myself here for the Wi-Fi signal. I've always been very libertarian leaning ever since I was very young. And so when around the time that we had the lockdowns, remember the COVID lockdowns, I was scrolling YouTube, I was watching through YouTube videos, and I came across this video series about these people that had built a floating house in the ocean near Thailand, and they got chased by the Thai Navy and the Coast Guard. They got chased by a gunboat and a helicopter, all this crazy stuff. Yeah, at the time I thought like, wow, that's a really cool story. And I watched the documentary just be interested in it. And then I realized why they had built the floating house in the first place. And the reason is because, and it sounds crazy, but they were trying to start another country. They're trying to start a new country using something called a seastead, which is a floating house in international waters. So it turns out that this house that they built was 13 nautical miles off the shore, which is important because the territorial waters of a country only extend to 12 nautical miles. So if you go out 13 miles, you're in international waters, and then you can be basically under whatever laws you want, depending on the flag you fly. Now, they weren't flying a flag, so their argument was, well, we don't have a flag, so this is now a narco-capitalism. So we're going to do whatever we want up here. And then that's when the Thai Navy attacked. So if you look up the story, it's a really, really interesting story. But I took one look at that and I said, this is fascinating. And from my libertarian mind, I really want to see more of this happening. But more important than that is this actually has potential. Like, we could really take this technology, this seasteading thing, and we could make it not just into a single floating house 13 miles out and getting attacked by a navy, but we could make it into like a real legitimate thing. And then in the same way that the 50 US states are supposed to be 50 different laboratories for different policies and regulations and tax codes and things like that. What if instead you had 10,000 different states, or 100,000 different states, or 100 million different states, and they all were trying different things? I think that's what seasteading can do. So it's really taking the libertarian angle that the U.S. was founded on and kind of cranking it up to 11 or 12. So that's how I got interested. Yeah, do you have any thoughts on that?
Now, with the way that it's set up, from what it looks like, is each what do you call that? Like, what the structure is? Each structure like a house, or do you like, all right, we're gonna make a structure for a park, and then we'll have a structure for a business and things to that nature, so they can. So it's almost like you walk from point A to point B, or how's that work?
If I can share my screen here, I'm gonna pull up my whole screen. Um, oh boy, doing some live stream is tricky. So I have a bunch of concept art here that kind of can show off what this looks like, both on an individual basis and at scale. Can you see my screen right now?
Yes, I pulled it up.
Perfect, awesome. So here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it's 2 wide. Here's 10 floating houses. So these are called ArkPad's. These are ArkPad units. Here's 10 single family homes, single bedroom unit on the bottom with a private deck on top. 10 of those right next to each other. We've got a small neighborhood. We could fit maybe 20 or 30 or 40 people into this small neighborhood. These floating structures that we build, called ArkPad's, they can be standalone or they can join together with neighboring structures. They're built on these big, tall, hollow columns that you're seeing right here that are called spars. And these allow it to not only float, but they keep the center of mass at the bottom of the structure and the center of buoyancy at the top, which means that it can't flip over even in a storm. And not only that, not only is it safe to not flip in a storm in the same way that an oil rig is designed, but additionally, because the platform that you walk on, the platform itself, is raised above the water, when smaller waves do pass through, rather than feeling the whole platform rock from side to side, it only passes through these spars and doesn't move the whole platform. So an ordinary day in the ocean, you're going to feel like you're on land because the platform is stable. And then during a storm, it's not as stable, but it's safe. It's safer than being in a boat, for example, because it can't flip over. So these are built first with safety in mind, secondly, with economics in mind, and thirdly, with that ability to modularly expand from a single family home to an entire floating city. Now, I like to compare seasteads and yachts. A yacht is something that you buy it for $1 million, and it costs $1 million a year to keep it floating. One of these seasteads would set you back about $250,000, which is cheaper than a house in California, for example. Obviously, probably maybe cheaper than a house in Virginia. I'm not entirely sure. But the difference between this and a yacht is that these are incredibly low maintenance. So this is made of strictly non-corrosive materials. We're talking fiberglass, stainless steel, aluminum, things that do not rust. We estimate that it has a lifespan of about 93 years, assuming that you do little to no maintenance on it whatsoever. So it will outlive you and maybe your children.
Okay. And is that solar panels? Is that how you make power?
Yes, you can use the solar panels to produce your own electricity. You can also use it to run a desalination machine to produce your own freshwater or salt water. The spars also serve as tanks that hold the fresh water. So the fresh water being held at the bottom also helps it to not flip over in storms, but it also means you have a huge quantity of fresh water that you can easily store. So if your desalination engine breaks down, your water maker, then you have months and months and months of fresh water stored up, so there's no need for emergencies. And of course, if you have them in a big community, then you can always actually connect the pipes, they connect the containers together with pipes, and then you actually have a self-contained water grid. So we have a floating resort in the Philippines right now with 14 rooms. Now, it's not this type of seastead. It's a different type of seastead. I'll get to that later. But we already have a resort with its own solar grid, its own water grid, its own food production. It's got a restaurant. It's going to have a floating water park soon. We've got glass-bottom kayaks. We can paddle out over a reef and look at the corals beneath you and cool stuff like that. Yeah, ever since last year, we've been operating a floating resort in the ocean already.
Now, what about sewer? Does it got assume some type of a sewer for sewer and things? What does that? Do you have to go inland and as if it was an RV? No. How would? Okay.
So it depends. If you're going to put one of these in a coastal area, then it has a septic tank, and you can have that septic tank drained into a boat, and the boat can take your waste to a port where it can dispose of the waste. Now, that's the first option if you're coastal. The other option is if you're in the middle of the ocean, like 80 miles from the nearest land, then you're actually allowed to, depending on the flag you fly and depending on the political and legal situation, usually you can just dump waste. Now, you don't want to dump human waste every day. There's like a certain time of day and a certain hour that you want to do it so that it basically gets, it's more likely to be eaten away by bacteria, and then you just don't go swimming at that certain time of day that you release the waste. And certainly floating communities would have to have kind of like common rules of, Monday at 11 p.m. is the standard time that we release our septic tanks or something like that. There have to be some kind of a common set of behaviors, but I'm sure you could work that out after the fact.
Right. Okay. Now, how many bedrooms did you say that would typically have in there? Like one of your houses, one of the pods there.
This is 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and the living room and kitchen are kind of merged together. I think I have some pictures where I can show that off here. I got a little floor plan. Oh yeah, so here's the floor plan. So here's the couch. Here's the kitchen. This is actually an outdated layout for the kitchen. We kind of moved some things around to be on the other side now. It gives you a rough idea of what it looks like, and what the views would look like from here as well. Here's the bedroom and the bathroom, and then here's the whole thing. So you basically got a house that sits on top of this floating platform. Bedroom here, bathroom here, and then the main room is here. Then you got a deck that goes around the edge, and then a staircase on the outside that leads to the top deck, which is again just a big, large deck area, the same size as the house, but the top deck is all open space. So you can put up, tables and set or something, and make it like a little activity space, whatever you want to do. Right now we have these things deployed as tourist infrastructure, but it doesn't have to be tourist infrastructure. It can be residential or commercial, or at this scale you can even do some light industrial activities. The point of this is that they're like Lego blocks. You snap them together and you can build a floating city.
It's interesting. Now, right now, I know since you're in Philippines, is this a Philippine? Are they the ones that's helping you work along and back this?
No, we built this all ourselves.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't, because I know you were talking about the flag you fly. I didn't know which flag you got. Since you're in the sea over there, I didn't know if it maybe was just easier to work with that government and so forth. And
the Philippines is not usually a government that's considered to be easy to work with. That's actually true. But one thing the Philippines does have is a lot of islands, and they're very close to the equator. And it's important to be close to the equator because the further north you are, the heavier storms you can get. I understand that in places like Florida, you tend to get hurricanes and things like that. And those, of course, are very severe storms. But then in the North Sea, you also get very rough storms. But when you go far enough south and you reach the equator, there's actually no more storms. You get to something called the doldrums, where the winds are very stable and calm, and it doesn't get hurricanes, and it doesn't get North Sea type storms. And so the southern Philippines is actually close enough to the equator that it's basically in the doldrums. So it has stable temperature year round, and there's lots and lots of islands, and there's a lot of tourism coming into the country. So basically, it was just a really geographically useful place for us to build. Also, Filipinos are very hard workers, so that helps as well.
How easy is it to put them together? Because if you have a massive community and a boat's coming through, I know it's not going to be long, but let's just say, and you need to open up so a cargo ship or something can pass through. Is it easy to unsnap, or is it a difficult thing to put them together?
It's not difficult to put them together at all. So, I mean, keep in mind, we haven't actually put two of these units together yet.
Okay.
The units that we have in the water, do you see these things in the background, these smaller kind of A-frame designs that are also in the water? I'll get to these in a minute, but these are what the resort is made out of right now. We have 14 of these in the background. The big one you're looking at here, the one that actually goes in the ocean, because again, the question you asked me is, why did I get into seasteading? I got into seasteading so we can build cities in the ocean. These are the ones you'd actually put in the ocean. These ones in the background, this is going to be terrible for people that are listening because they're not going to be able to see anything. But the ones in the background, I'm going to describe it. It's like an A-frame, like a fiberglass shell with it's like a studio unit inside. So it's got a bed and like the bathroom is separated, but the bed and the kitchen and the sitting area, they're all the same room, basically. So it's just a smaller unit. They're all floating. All of this is floating in the ocean, but these things are meant to be more coastal because you can see they aren't raised up on spars. They're free floating, so they're not meant to go through heavy storms. That's kind of the idea here.
All right. Interesting. Yeah. As the CEO and founder, what does a typical day look like for you at ArkPad right now?
Well, my typical day today, I really want to pull up a video, like a recent video, so I can show you, what this place actually looks like. I mean, hold on, let me stop sharing for a moment. Now I'll find a video here. I'm just going to describe my day, what I did today. So today we have this island hopping boat that takes people from island to island to island on these tours. I went and I did some maintenance on the engine for that. I talked to a maritime lawyer that showed up in our resort who does some volunteer work for the Seasteading Institute. I talked with him about some things. He just kind of stopped by and we had a general seasteading conversation. Then I went around the resort and I checked the plumbing system and just boring stuff. It's really not that interesting. Uh, Running a resort in the ocean, it sounds fun, but it's just maintenance. We're just doing basic maintenance. Here, yeah, maybe I can show you guys now. Let me present my screen one more time.
Okay.
For those who can see visuals, I can show you guys what it is that this place actually looks like. So here's a visual of the resort as it is right now. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Here's food from our restaurant. We got these water bikes and inflatable jet skis and things like that. And here's somebody sitting out of their balcony and looking out over the sea. So, and this is all just marketing content that we're putting out. But the important thing to think about when you're looking at this is that this is not just a resort. This is not just a business model. I don't come on here to talk about like, hey, you should come and stay at a resort. And people should come and stay at a resort, right? But the reason I came on this podcast is because I want to talk about what is the intersection between seasteading and libertarianism. And the intersection, as I see it, is that to get to the highest level of libertarianism, I'm going to make a pun here, to get to maximum libertarianism, right? What you need is the highest possible degree of autonomy. And in my mind, the only way to get the highest degree of autonomy possible is either setting up your own colony on Mars, which is very, very difficult to do, away from all existing governments, or going into international waters. And as you can see from this picture here, we're effectively, at this point, we're capable of going into international waters. And I think if people want to see, real libertarianism come to life in the next few years, they should be looking at seasteading.
Huh. Will you, I know this might sound, I don't know. Will there be like cryptocurrency, or what type of trading in that aspect will there be? Or if you had a community, if you down the road, you put them all together, you build a community, do you think it'll be like some type of cryptocurrency, or would you build, or how would you do that?
So if you're asking how would we fund the construction of it, then it would just be real estate. I mean, you can have real estate on the blockchain. They have like RWA, right? Real world assets. So you can take real estate and put it on the blockchain. We actually sell this real estate right now. If you go to our Facebook page and you message us through Facebook, you'll talk to our marketing staff and they can help you to buy ownership in this place. So you can buy, I think the minimum is like $400. You can buy like a portion of ownership in one of these floating houses. You can do that right now. And we accept crypto. So you can convert your crypto into physical real estate today. And I do endorse people doing that because you're supporting seasteading when you do that, which is a good thing. But when it comes to building a floating city, the two questions are, one, how do we fund it to begin with? And two, how does it make a profit and therefore grow on its own? And the answer to the second question is there's a lot of different business models that political jurisdictions that have better governance can attract and grow those business models. I think you know this, you're a libertarian, right? The most extreme example is, would you rather set up a business in South Korea or North Korea? Nobody's going to set up a business in North Korea. It's probably not even legal. It's banned, right? So would you rather set up a new business in California or Florida? Anybody in their right mind is going to choose Florida. So if you can build a floating city, to some degree, it ought to attract business just based on it having better taxes, better regulations, better everything, right? You're creating a new laboratory for freedom. That's one element of it. Another element of it is there are some direct economic advantages to being on the water. One of them is that you have better access to ocean farming. So seafood farms, fish farms, seaweed farms, crab farms, lobster farms, all kinds of stuff, right? Seafood is some of the highest profit margin stuff you can make. If you compare a chicken farm to a salmon farm, the salmon farm almost always has way higher income. The salmon farm is going to blow the chicken farm out of the water. And pun not intended there. So seafood farming is probably in early on a good way to make money for a floating city. Like you're saying, maybe cryptocurrency, like becoming a crypto trading hub, is a good way for a city to make money. There are underwater data centers now that Microsoft is building. If you could copy that tech, then that would be another good way to bring in income. So yeah, I mean, I guess are you talking about how do you initially fund it, or are you talking about how does a floating city make money to begin with? I guess
Well, once
because
you
those are
get it
different
up,
questions.
all right, yeah. So I guess funding would be one. Like, where are you getting the funding from? And then number two would be, what would you envision? Would you want it to be a cryptocurrency once it's an actual? You said let's build a city. Would you want it to? Do you have like an idea of like let's have cryptocurrency, blockchain? That's what that was the question I was wondering. What was your?
I mean,
what's your envision of it?
it kind of depends on what you mean by blockchain. Are you saying like, should every restaurant accept Bitcoin? If they want to, sure. Or are you saying like, there needs to be an official currency that you use in the city or something like that? If the city in its initial stages is comprised of like 62 people, I don't think it's going to have its own coin. But
right.
If you're saying would it be a crypto-friendly political jurisdiction, then yes, it definitely would.
All right, interesting. What has been some of the biggest technical challenges in building this stable living and floating homes have you come across?
A lot. We've been doing this for 3 years now. We've built the first thing that we built was in a place called Boracay. Let me show you a picture of this. So the Reef Resort is the resort. ArkPad is the company. I'm going to pull up the company and show you guys for a second here. So this is the first floating house that we built. Where's the pin? Here we go. This is the first floating house that we built in a place called Boracay. I'm going to mute this. You can see the floating house out here in the distance. Here it is being pulled by one of our boats. So we built it on land and then we hauled it out into the sea. And then it's going to get taken and moored. So mooring is basically dropping a big concrete weight on the seafloor and then using a rope to fasten the floating house to the concrete weight. Now you can see the size of this thing. You can see how big this is. It was at least a year and a half of civil engineers, architects, naval architects, marine engineers, just lots and lots of different people who were heavily involved in every aspect of the design, construction, and launching of this thing. And the launching process alone took 6 months because you have to move it and then restructure and then move it and then restructure. It's a big thing, but the new version that we have, so this was the Arkpad-C. This was our third design, which is the first one we actually decided to build at scale. The new one is the Arkpad-D, which I can show some other pictures of later on. That one you can build in about 2 months on basically any beach, and you can launch it in about 48 hours. So the technology has advanced quite a bit.
Wow. And how fast, when you move it, how fast is, and I know this might sound silly, can you move it at normal pace, or is it like have to go slow? Like, when they move the space shuttle, it has to go real slow because you don't want anything to be jockeyed with. Does that the same, or can you just pull it on out once it gets put together? It's pretty secure.
This original version had to go very slow, about 1 knot. The new version that we have now, that we're about to launch into the water, actually later this week, we should be launching it. Knock on wood. But anyways, the new version, I think it can go maybe 2 or 2.5 knots. So that's roughly about 3 miles per hour, which doesn't sound very fast, but considering that this one could only go about 1 mile per hour, and now it can be towed at a speed of about 3 miles per hour, that is an improvement. But to answer your question, no, these don't really go very fast. These are
Okay.
primarily stationary floating objects. Like I said, this is real estate. This is not a boat. This is real estate.
Right. No, I was just curious when you were moving it out there, if it was like, if it had to go. I remember watching them do a documentary about the space shuttle. And when it goes out to the launch pad, it had to go very slow to get prepped to set up because they didn't want to jockey, anything to shake loose or whatever the case might be. So with the, you said there was solar panel. Have you ever looked at any other type of things for energy? Or are you able to, since you're in the middle of the ocean, would you be able to do something like nuclear or wind power and things of that nature? Or is solar panel the best one you've got right now?
Imagine a floating colony of like 60 people who are outside of any government in international waters, and they build their own nuclear power plant. How do you think that's going to go?
Well, yeah, I get it. But some things are, there's some things that are better for environment, and we got to look at all technology, in my opinion. But that's why I was just curious if y'all have ever looked into something like that. Okay.
I'd love to have it, but I don't think it wouldn't be allowed by the U.S. Navy. I can say that much.
Okay, well, that makes sense. How do floating communities change the way people live in the future? How do you see it changing the way people live in the future?
That there are going to be certain people that live in the ocean in the future. There are going to be people that, flee Iran or flee Venezuela or flee China and have nowhere else to go to, and they're not allowed to immigrate into the United States. They're not allowed to immigrate into Europe, and they're sent away, and then they're going to say, well, where else can we go? And floating cities provide that sanctuary, provide that refuge for people that want to escape tyranny, but maybe they don't have anywhere else to go. If you have 100 floating cities, 10 of them are probably going to have something akin to maybe not completely open borders, but a very tolerant immigration policy. And then let's say the other 90 are very strict. What that means to me is that those 10 are going to see significant population increases every single year, which also correlates to a significantly increasing size of the overall economy. So that's my view on immigration most of the time. So I think that, floating cities, on the one hand, they can take the immigrants that America doesn't want, and on the other hand, they should be designed with immigration in mind. And because they're modular, because you can just keep building them, cranking out the same floating house over and over and over again from a handful of boatyards, you can really scale up and just bring in a lot of immigrants very quickly. So in the future, will we see immigrant-based floating cities or corporation-based floating cities or, libertarian volunteer-based floating cities? I don't know. It's hard to say. My role is just to develop the technology and make sure that it's safe and make sure that it's practical for real-world use.
And for someone to visit or stay at one of your reef resorts, you're able to have people come here and just visit, correct?
It's on Airbnb, it's on Agoda, Booking.com. Yeah, anybody can come.
All right. Where is the next spot that you would? Have you looked at like locations or where you'll expand, or will you just expand from that point? Does that make sense?
I think we're going to continue to expand for the time being where we are right now. Now that's not to say that we're not willing to sell seasteads. Okay, if anybody contacts us and says we want this particular floating house, that they want one of these, well, I would give them the upgraded version to start with, right? Because this thing's got like a 60-year lifespan. The new one's going to have about a 93-year lifespan, is again what we estimate. So we have an upgraded version of what you're seeing on the screen right now. So if anybody wants to buy a seastead and deploy it in their country, we can break it down into pieces, put it in a shipping container, and send it off to you, and you can buy it from us. And they are for sale right now. But if you are more conservative and you say, I'm interested in investing in these floating houses. I want to own a part of this floating resort, but I only want to put in like 400, $500, something like that, just to kind of test it out. Then that's when you should probably message us on Facebook, and you can buy what's called fractional ownership. And all of the money that comes from this type of fractional ownership that just goes piecemeal into the resort that we have right now, that money basically goes into our boatyard to fund the construction of more floating houses in the Philippines. I can show you again. Let me continue to screen share. This is the area. Show you the whole Earth here, and I'll zoom in. This is roughly where the resort is located. I don't know how well people at home can see this on their screen, but do you see this area here near the Kittapong sandbar, where you see this kind of, so here's the island, right? There's a big island out in the Gulf here. And then there's kind of like a coral reef that stretches out into into the ocean, and it forms kind of like a little protected bay. Now this looks like land. This is not land. This is actually coral as seen from space. It looks like part of an island, but it's all underwater. So you can imagine this kind of like a bowl where the shallow part is here, and then this dark water is the deep part, and then you have the land on the side. The resort itself, I don't know if it will show me this because I'm on Google Earth, so it's not going to show me. It only shows me on Google Maps. But basically, between these two little bits of coral right here, this is where the resort is located. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
So it's basically surrounded on all sides by coral reef. And we have some really fantastic scuba diving. We've got good scuba diving. We've got good snorkeling. We've got a really good vacation environment. Like if you want to get out of Virginia, or you want to get out of the Northeast, or go do something, new and interesting, our resort is a good place for you to go and try that out.
Right. Did you say these can be set up in any depth of water, correct? I couldn't remember. Did you say like you can put it wherever you want in the ocean, correct? Or does it have to have like a certain depth?
As long as it's not too shallow. There's no maximum depth, but there is a minimum depth. You can't put it in 1 foot of water, obviously. But yeah, you can basically put it wherever you want.
Okay, wow. How many people have reached out to you? Is this something very popular? Is this something that's growing popularity?
Well, we've had over 1,000 guests.
All right.
Our restaurant served at least, let me think here. Let me think back. So I think we've had close to 1,000 guests per month, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, we had 1,000 in December, and now it's the end of January, so I have to check. We might have had about 800 guests in January. So I look back to September, we've had 4,000 or 5,000 guests, and I know that our restaurant has served at least 3,000 meals. So, what can I say? It's like a lot of people go online, they discover seasteading, and they see these pictures of these giant, fantastical AI generated floating cities, and they say, well, that'll never work. But we're really doing seasteading. We're doing seasteading currently. This is, and again, I can show you some of these videos here if I can pull this up. There are I gotta pause for a second. There are Instagram influencers that come from all over the Philippines and from other countries, and they come to our resort because it's becoming like an influencer destination for Instagrammers. And so they come here so they can just film themselves swimming around with the fish in the coral reefs here. And again, this is coastal, right? This is all coastal. This is not the big ones that look like the oil rigs that go out in the deep water, but this is what the resort looks like. Those big ones on the spars, the oil rig looking thing, we're building those right now. And I'm hoping within 2 weeks, we should start moving those into the resort. So right now, all that you have are these smaller coastal units, but the big units are on the way.
Okay. That looks really interesting. Now, since you were a kid, have you been interested in water and things of that nature, or was it just during the lockdown that was when you went, all right, you saw the video or whatever, and you said, that's where I'm going to go? Or have you been interested in this stuff?
Yeah, I got my boating license when I was 16. I
Okay.
was learning how to water ski when I was like about 12 or 13. So I've been on the water. I mean, mostly I grew up in Michigan, right? So I was always out on the lakes. I never even saw the ocean until I was maybe 17 for the first time. And then I moved to the Philippines when I was about 24, 25. And now I'm 29. So I've been here for a while. But yeah, I mean, I was always on the water, but I'm definitely new to the whole ocean thing.
Wow, that is interesting. What advice would you give someone who is just discovering seasteading and wants to get involved? I know you've discussed some of it. Can you just rehash it? Because that was a question that came up, was sent to me.
Sure, yeah. I would say that seasteading is, in my opinion, this is just my
You froze up a little bit if you can hear me. And he still froze up. Well, we'll give Mitchell a few minutes as he hopefully gets his signal back together. This is a very interesting thing. He's had a log off, so we're going to hang out here for a few minutes. So we'll give Mitchell a few some time to get on there and get all back on the screen, giving you some dead air for right now. But if you're watching it live, you get dead air. But if you go to Maximum Libertarian on Rumble or on here he comes back in. Hopefully he'll be able to make it back in. Hey, what's happening?
sorry. Hey, have I been choppy, Brian? I think maybe I've cut out a few times. Is that true?
No, the entire time you've been very good. I mean, it might have been a one little word, but everything else has been good.
Oh, okay, okay. Let me try to just fix my. Sorry about that. I'm trying to move my location here so I can be a bit better about it.
Okay.
All right. So where did we leave off? We were talking
I
about
had
how to get
asked you
involved in
what advice,
seasteading.
discovering seasteading and if they want to get involved.
Yes. So what I would say is, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, but seasteading is the purest form of libertarianism. It is the only form of libertarianism where you can effectively start from scratch and operate completely outside of any governmental framework and just create a new type of civilization out of nothing. And it's that blank slate that allows you to say, here's the type of political or legal or cultural laboratory that I think should exist that would be that I'd want to be part of. And so if libertarian is about personal freedom, I believe that seasteading can give you the highest possible level of personal freedom. So if you want to support seasteading, you believe in the seasteading movement and the seasteading project, and you want to get involved in that, then you should get involved. You should support the development of this technology. You should come and stay and vacation in a seastead for ideological reasons, and you may find that you like it. Or you should invest and you should buy some ownership in our floating resort by messaging us on Facebook. Or if you have enough money, you should just outright buy a seastead for yourself and get a big boat or get a pull into the water or get a bulldozer and push it into the water. We can send it to you. It's like bolt together like IKEA furniture, but on a very large scale. You push it in the water and you can have your own seastead. And if you want to send out into international waters and then declare yourself a country and hopefully not be attacked by the Thai Navy, then then you have the right to do that. So whatever you want to do with a seastead, however you can get involved, that's what you should do.
Okay. And Are there opportunities for people to collaborate with ArkPad, like invest in visiting, and well, obviously there is visiting and working on projects? Do y'all hire, or do you just go to arkpad.co?
Go to our Facebook page. If I could give you our Facebook page, I know a lot of people don't use Facebook and people aren't a big fan of it. In the Philippines, a lot of commerce is done through Facebook. It's a standard Filipino thing. So if I could give you a link to our Facebook page after this interview, if you could put that out there and help direct people on how they can contact us, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, I can do that. Just to let you know, the camera, I don't know if you can see it, but I can see the light in the top of your head. I didn't know.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. If you wanted to be, some people like to have their face on camera and some people don't. But all right. What other technologies like AI or self-driving boats is ArkPad exploring or planning?
That's a good question. Now, I can't talk a lot about our self-driving boat projects. So unfortunately, there's kind of like an NDA in place for that.
Okay.
But we are working with several research corporations that are looking at using those for various different things. I'm sure you're aware that we're nearby to China, and there are concerns about the whole China-Taiwan situation, so I can't really talk much about that. But there are other technologies we're looking at. We're looking at one is the extraction of lithium from salt water. So this is a really fascinating subject. Most of the world's lithium is actually not in the ground. Most of the commercially available lithium comes from just a small area in South America where there are really massive lithium mines. But those mines contain only a small portion of the world's lithium. Most of it is dissolved in the ocean. So if you, and here, I'll just pop around here to play some other videos. I do have a recent video that I'd like to show that I'll just put in the background here, which is the Arkpad. Oh yeah, here we go. Why don't I put this on full screen? So I'll have this play in the background.
Behind me, you can see that
this is the new one, the upgraded version I was talking about before. So anyways, I was talking about lithium. So lithium is present in the ocean in very large quantities, much larger than they are in the Earth's crust. And we're currently developing a technology that will allow us to extract lithium directly out of salt water into a battery grade form, which effectively what that's going to do is it's going to result in another industry, the production primarily of batteries, or just mass quantities of battery grade lithium that can be used in these future floating cities. So again, we're not just worried about developing the technology to build floating cities, we also want to develop the early industries that will prop up the economies of these floating cities. So that's one side project I can talk about.
Okay. Where do you hope ArkPad and seasteading will be in the next 5 to 10 years?
I hope we'll be building a floating city. That's certainly my hope, is that we'll find people to partner with on a large scale production of a floating city to the tune of $20-30 million. If not, then we'll continue to grow at a reasonable but exponential rate. And the seasteads that we have will make more money through tourism, more money through fish farming, through doing the things that they're already doing. And it will get enough investment that our resort basically should grow to a point where it can effectively start funding not just more coastal seasteads to put up on Airbnb, but something that becomes like a sea colony, like an early sea colony for a few dozen people. If we can plant the seeds of a floating city, at the very least, if we can't build one outright, if we can just plant the seeds, that's good enough, because 100 years from now, that place could be as big as Singapore or as big as New York. We don't know. It's about planting that initial seed that allows a city to grow.
Right. How many people are on your team designing this?
The design team is a lot smaller today because most of the designs at this point are done. The technology is mature enough to be mass produced. 2.5 years ago, I would say our design team was like 5 or 6, maybe 7 people, mostly engineers. Certainly naval architects were heavily involved. We've had 3 different naval architects that have been involved. Yeah, so probably, but if you count everyone, both the civil engineering side and the naval side, we probably had at least 10 or 11 different people that were involved in the design of our seasteads. But today it's more like 2 engineers are still sticking around as we're doing the construction. Certainly, once we've built multiple prototype units, we won't really need design anymore. Then it's about pivoting to what I'm talking about, this mass production mode.
Right. If someone is completely new to this idea, what's the one thing you want them to take away from the work at ArkPad?
I might need more context on that question. Yeah, what do you mean? Like, do I want them to take away like how to get to our resort, or like from a libertarian perspective, or what do you mean exactly?
Yeah, like what would be the libertarian? Like, if you give me more of a, can you build to like if you could only one shot to tell them something, if they took it away, is there one thing that you'd like them to always think about? Like, this is breaking away from freedom, or breaking away from freedom, getting your freedom back, breaking away from being controlled, things of that nature. Is there like one tagline you could set up for it, I guess?
I would say that seasteading is the ultimate form of freedom. And if you value freedom, then you should support seasteading.
That's very interesting. This is a very interesting topic, and I think you're going to have a lot of good stuff come your way. Do you have other that besides the seasteading? Does there other technology? Example, like with Apple, they would build the computer, but while they're building the computer, they're also doing the iPhone, and they've got technology going with the iPad and the iWatch and all that. Is that how this technology flows, you think? Does it have, all right, we start with the ArkPad, but it bleeds into other technology you didn't even think about 10 years ago?
Kind of, yes. I mean, there are really 3 significant seasteading companies today that I can think of. The first one is us, ArkPad. The next one is a group called Ocean Builders. They're in Panama. And the last one, if you look them up, is called LibreArcs. And LibreArcs is a company, I know the guy that runs it, and they basically build like a solar-powered yacht that can go out in the ocean for years without needing to make port again. And that actually is more of a yacht type thing. So it's maybe not a true blue seastead, but what I'm saying is there are different types of seasteads for different environments. Even our company produces 2 different types of seasteads, as you've seen while I've been screen sharing here, that we have the kind of small A-frame coastal version, and then we have this big oil rig looking thing. So right there's your iPad and your iPhone. You got different sizes of tech, but they kind of serve the same purpose of being floating real estate. So will there be other sizes? Will there be other shapes and dimensions in the future? Yes, I think that there will be, but I think that they'll fit into relatively neat categories in the same way that you can have an Android or an iPhone, but it's still a phone, or you can have like a Kindle or a tablet or a whatever those other things are called, but it's still a tablet, right? Then you have like a laptop, and then there's 15 different companies that make laptops, but they're all laptops. They're all about the same size. There are many different seasteads that exist actually even right now that people are just not aware of this technology. And there will probably be more in the future, but they do fit into certain categories. And I think that what you'll find is that those common categories are the ones with spars and the ones without spars. And the ones with spars, like you're seeing here now, where I'm standing on top and I'm like, almost 18 feet in the air, the ones with spars are good at rolling through storms. So if you want to build a city that's going to last through a hurricane, you want this type. You want the ones with the big, heavy columns on them.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on and explaining ArkPad and talking about it. Like I said, I think you got a really cool thing going on here, and I think you got a lot of things that'll come around in the future. It's gonna be pretty big, I see. So thank you once again for coming on and talking about this stuff. And if you send me that link, I will gladly put it up on and send it out so that people can get in contact if they have any questions or would like to provide you with any ideas that they may have.
Yes,
All
please.
right.
Anybody that wants to message us, whether you're gonna, email, Facebook, WhatsApp, whatever, I'll send it all over to you, Brian. And thank you again for your
Yeah.
time. Thank you for letting me speak with you today.
Oh, absolutely. And I will talk to you later. Have a good day.
You as well. Take care.